Oh God, there's my little chat window. Let me get that organized. See what happens. Oh my goodness. Let's try this again. If you're watching after the fact and you didn't tune in live, we had to start the stream again because there was an audio malfunction. My settings are always left the way they are. And then when you close down the program and restart the program, every now and then OBS will knock things out of order and knock things out. And it's like, why are you doing that? You shouldn't be doing that. All the folks that work at OBS, fix that. So when I close the program and reopen it, my settings are still correct. It's annoying. But hey, welcome everybody. Let's pretend we haven't done this already. Welcome everyone. What's going on? It is Sunday, January the 29th, 2023, 3:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know what you might be thinking, another live show, Dave? Well, listen, like I said, my schedule's all over the place and I have to seize opportunities to put content up on the channel. And also, this is a question that I get asked, actually. I don't feel this falls into the realm that Frank Riker likes to talk about, top 10 Dr. Loomis stances, top 5 Dr. Loomis bootlaces. This is an actual question that I get asked a fair bit. And now, when I say a fair bit, I don't mean like every day, but enough that I've been like, maybe I should talk about it. Now, I have answered it on live streams before, but I've never dedicated like a stream to it or a video to it. And at face value, it might seem like we're stretching here for content, but I actually do find this interesting because it is relevant to the theme of the character of Michael Myers, of the original Halloween. It's actually vital to the makeup of the character of Michael Myers. And I find it interesting. So let's talk about it. So the question is that I get asked, or that have been asked, and by the way, that super chat that came in before, I have saved it. I do have it. I will get to it at the end, okay? So you haven't lost it. You haven't lost it. No need to send in again. I mean, you can send in another one if you want, but no need to send in that one again. So the question is, basically, do I think that the character of Michael Myers would have been the same if he had not been wearing the Michael Myers mask? I'm sure you've talked about that with your friends. Maybe you've speculated on it. Who knows? But the short answer is yes, I do think it would change things. But my first thought is, when somebody asks that, is, well, do you mean that if they were wearing no mask? Like, is the question, do you think it would change the makeup of the character or change the character if he wasn't wearing a mask at all, or if he was wearing a different mask? And I think when people ask that question, they are essentially talking about a different mask. Not no mask, but a different mask. Certainly if he was wearing no mask, it would absolutely change things. If he was wearing a different mask, because as we know, one of the masks on the table was, of course, the Emmett Kelly clown mask, the sad face, which obviously they did not use. I stand to be corrected, but I even think there was talk of like a Ronald Reagan mask or something like that. I have no idea. But I find it interesting. I find this interesting. So not a Ronald Reagan mask, a Richard Nixon mask, not a Reagan mask. Could have been a Reagan mask. He wasn't, well, it could have been, but he wasn't president yet. A Richard Nixon mask, excuse me. So basically, like, would it have worked if it was any other mask? And the short answer is no, but the longer answer is no, but yes, depending on what kind of mask it was. It did not have to be the William Shatner Star Trek mask. It didn't have to be that. But it did have to be a human-like face that was emotionless. That is important. That is important. One of the inspirations for John Carpenter, one of his favorite movies, and he's talked a bit about this in some BTS of Halloween, and that is this movie here called Eyes Without a Face. It's from 1960, and it's a French film. And this is essentially about a plastic surgeon who I believe wants to perform plastic surgery on his daughter, if I'm not mistaken. I have seen this movie, but not in quite some time. And like I said, it's a French film. It's subtitled, but it's a great movie. You know, it's good. And the mask that his daughter wears in the film is a human, human featured, very, like you sometimes see these masks at like costume stores, like it's like a human face, but there's just no emotion there. You can kind of see it there in the poster. There's lots of Google images as well. And so this was, again, there's no emotion, right? There's no emotion whatsoever. So whether subconsciously or consciously, did this play into the writing for the character of Michael Myers in terms of the inspiration of sort of that emotionless kind of character? Maybe. We do know that, obviously, according to John Carpenter, when he was at film school, I think it was when he was at film school. Was it film school or when he was in high school or something? I can't remember now. He went on like a field trip to this psychiatric hospital, and he remembers seeing a child with just this blank sort of stare, this sort of uncomfortable, almost uncanny valley stare, and that we know obviously was inspiration for the character of Michael Myers. But Tony, Michael, and I are thinking about doing a Two Dudes and Some Bullshit on Eyes Without a Face, which would be a lot of fun to do and tackle this, because there's a lot of cool themes in that movie. So let me just go back to the other screen here. So now I wrote, this is from a couple of years ago. I wrote this, I don't know if I was anticipating on doing like a expo, like some sort of video on this topic or not. I can't remember, but this is what I had written here. And this is, maybe I was preparing to do a video on this topic a couple of years ago and I just never did. But there's some interesting points here that I want to go over. So one of the main themes of the original Halloween, is this idea of a seemingly normal person committing horrific acts of violence. That's so important because if you remember, you know, the opening of the film, right? It's this 6-year-old child. When that Halloween mask comes off, Michael, mask comes off, it's this 6-year-old boy. Now of course, we know that now, but in 1978, we had no idea that this was a 6-year-old child. I mean, you could stretch and say, well, we kind of knew because we saw this little hand creep in and the height of the camera. And, you didn't know. You didn't know. And that's why it was so shocking. Like, holy, it's a child. It's like a little kid. Holy shit, right? Michael's around someplace. It's not like she said, my 6-year-old little boy, or, my 6-year-old little brother, Michael's around someplace. No, she didn't say that. She said Michael's around. It could be, she's what, 15, 17, I think, right? Maybe Michael's 15 or something, which is still shocking, but like a 6-year-old child, unbelievable. And then of course, you have this tiny wartime home. Things are normal. This normal looking middle-class family with the mom and the dad, and everything looks normal. And it's these horrific events set against the backdrop of normalcy. So that's important, right? That's very important. The mask serves to emphasize this theme by obscuring any human emotions that may be present on the face of the actor playing Michael Myers. That is really important as well, because we absolutely could hang on a sec here. Let me just, there we go. My stream was a little behind. We absolutely could, I mean, that would be a problem, right? We don't want to see any emotions. We don't want to see any exertion, like, we don't want to see that, right? And it's important that, that the mask that you choose, again, it didn't have to be a William Shatner Star Trek mask. That was happenstance, right? That was happenstance. And that was just sort of there. Now, there is an argument to be made. We could say, well, did they really know what mask they wanted? Because did they think this deeply into it? Or are we sweaty Halloween nerds thinking this deeply into it after the fact because that's just what we do? Because if that was the case, then why would Tommy Lee Wallace have picked up the Emmett Kelly mask? I mean, it would not have made any sense. If you think about it really deep, well, if he knows he wants a pale matte, like just a kind of a, featureless, he wouldn't have picked up but then the other side of the coin is, but he was wearing a clown mask as a 6-year-old child, and maybe they want to sort of lean heavily into that sort of, that connection there, right? Clown mask as a kid, clown mask as an adult, right? There's sort of there's a connective tissue there. Maybe there's something kind of going on. Okay, fair enough. But it was very important that because of the writing in that film and what Dr. Loomis says, I think it was important to have a mask like the mask in Eyes Without a Face from 1960, or like this. It's human features, but there's no emotion. There's no emotion whatsoever. I think that's very important. Go back to my notes here. Oops. There we go. Back to my notes. The lack of humanity is reinforced in the fact that Michael doesn't speak, making him even more mysterious and unsettling, right? So that's also important too. Very important. The mask serves to make the character appear more like a machine or a robot rather than a human being, which makes the audience feel even more uneasy. And that is also true. Again, we're not necessarily thinking of these things consciously, but this is really important. Really, really important. I think so anyway. Yeah, it's more like he's more machine now than man, kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi with Darth Vader. But Darth Vader is emotionless, right? It's a very different set of circumstances. But that's what I thought of when I jotted that down. Was it's kind of like Darth Vader, more machine, more robot, less human, right? It's less human in that sense. So having a mask, sorry, I got so many tabs open here. Having a mask that can help to perpetuate this idea of this, emotionless figure, emotionless character is vitally important. So when somebody asks, do you think if he wasn't wearing the Michael Myers mask, would it have changed things? Yes, but would it have changed things if he was wearing the Eyes Without a Face mask? Maybe not. It doesn't necessarily have to be the William Shatner Star Trek mask. It just has to be an emotionless, human-featured mask. There is no emotion. That's what it needed to be. And that's what it became. So if it had been like the Richard Nixon mask or the Emmett Kelly mask or, even, one of the Beatles, what masks were out there, right? It would have changed things, because then there would have been a frown or a smile now, I'm not saying the film wouldn't have worked, but it would have changed the feeling of the character. And sort of that symbolism, that cinematic language that is built into the layers of what the emotionless face represents against the backdrop of the character of Michael being emotionless, catatonic and just, all that juicy shit that we love, right? There is no rhyme or reason. It doesn't make sense. There's no motive. It just is. It just is. And when you look at a blank humanoid face like this, it just is. There's no floofy frills about it. It just is. It is not projecting onto the audience what the killer or what you think the killer may be feeling. Do you know what I mean? Or some sort of like, if he had worn the sad Emmett Kelly clown mask, then there would have been all these think pieces and essays on, he's sad inside, and that is that represents the sadness that Michael feels on a subconscious. No doubt that people would, because you are seeing that and you are now thinking of maybe that's symbolic for the sadness that Michael felt as a child, and that's not what John Carpenter wanted, right? And that was the correct move to make. We just want it to be as is, right? So you yourself as an audience are now not being told what to think the killer is feeling. You are projecting your own assumptions and your own ideas of what may or may not be there, because there is nothing there, persuading you to feel one emotion or another. It is just a blank, pale, emotionless face. And the character doesn't come from any sort of facial expression. The character comes from the lack, from the darkness of the eyes. That's where the character comes from, so to speak, right? So this stuff is really interesting. I find this stuff really interesting. Let me see here. Just going back to my notes. It's a long kind of thing. I don't want to read the whole thing. I just kind of want to hit some bullet points, kind of where I was. Let me see. Yeah, I'm sort of just kind of repeating myself here. The lack of emotion on the mask allows the actor playing Michael to convey emotion through body language and movement. That's true. Motionless face. Yeah, I'm just sort of repeating kind of the same bullet points as before. But this is really important, though. It's really important. So, I mean, that's really the answer, isn't it? And it would have changed it. It absolutely would have changed it. Even if you'd kept like everything else the same. Even if you'd kept everything else the same. I'm not saying it would have made it a bad movie. Maybe it would have made it a better movie, but in a different way. Right? But it was so important when you think about the character of Myers, not the mask, the character of Michael, right? He is, and even his, like in the look on his face when the clown mask is taken off his face and he's just kind of there. Do you know what I mean? And he's just there holding the knife. That's why it's so important that he never speaks, ever speaks, So, some people thought he had said, "Get back my mask," in Halloween Kills. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. No, he didn't. He did, damn it. No, he didn't. But yeah, so yeah, it would all depend. It would all depend, right? I think you can absolutely keep everything the same and not have it the William Shatner mask. You can have it as like I just said, the eyes without a face mask, or any human face that is emotionless. That is just, that's it. Now, you would still have to, and painting it white is really important as well, because, if it had been the Emmett Kelly mask, I often wonder if they would have what they would have done with it. Would they have painted it white? Would they have just left it the way it was when they purchased it from the store? Probably not, because there may have been a copyright around it. So they may have had to have made some alterations. So you kind of know what it is, but it's, it's a low budget horror movie. Hopefully nobody comes after us, and it's, you know what I mean? But painting it fish belly white. And again, that's something to keep in mind too, is that, and shout out to all the amazing independent Michael Myers mask makers out there, right? But what they will do is they will shade and weather the Michael Myers masks, and rightly so, to look like how the Myers mask looks when the lighting is crafted in the original movie. But when you actually look, it's not like they shaded and weathered the mask. They just spray painted this mask white. The reason why you get a lot of depth and shading and what kind of, the shadows and things like that on the mask in the original film is because of the way that Dean Cundy and his team crafted the lighting, right? But of course, we want to skip, we can't, I mean, if you really wanted to sell Michael Myers masks as like how it really looked in the original film, you would just get a Don Post Captain Kirk 1975 mask, tear off the sideburns, tear off the eyebrows, mat the hair, and just spray paint it fish belly white and just sell it. Like, you wouldn't add any weathering, you wouldn't add any nothing. That's literally what they did, right? But like I said, when you craft your lighting and you know how to really sort of make those features pop, it can really look like something incredible. And because it's white, it stands out in the darkness, which I think is really important too. So I do think that whatever mask they had chosen, I think white would have been the way to go, because it really shows up. When the lighting is crafted really well, it pops. Whereas if there's too many grooves and too many things, a frown and a bulbous nose for a clown, red and grooves and hair, and it just would have. The simpler the better. I think there'd be too much going on there. That you'd see a guy in the background in a mask. Which is creepy in and of itself, but the mask would no longer be the star of the character. Do you know what I mean? And I think so. Having it pale and having it just white and emotionless it was the right way to go. But again, like I've been saying, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Captain Kirk mask. It could have been anything, like the Eyes Without a Face mask or whatever. Just a human face blank. That's it. So those are my thoughts. That's my answer to that, because it's so integral to the character of Michael Myers. It's so important that the mask he is wearing is the representation of the layers that make up the complexity of his character, right? And that is the mystery, the ambiguity, the mystique, the unknown. It is so important that whatever mask he is wearing is not projecting onto an audience how they should be feeling about him. It just is. And however you feel about him is however you feel about him, right? You know what I mean? There's not, you're not being guided in a direction. Now, we could say that, well, technically you are being guided because of the way they craft the shots and they craft the lighting and the way they present him. Absolutely 100%. But you're not being guided by an emotion on his face, right? So you're not thinking at any given time, I think he's angry right now. I think he's sad right now. I think he's happy right now. No, there's nothing. It just is. It literally just is, which is very important. That's I don't think, again, I don't know if, Carpenter and Wallace necessarily intellectualized these things, or Deborah Hill and Nick Castle. I don't think anybody necessarily went to great lengths to intellectualize these things, but they are interesting. They are interesting things to think about, and maybe it's just a happy accident, but it absolutely, maybe they just chose the William Shatner mask because it just looked fucking creepy, and which it did. And they've said that. Oh, when Nick Castle came out of I don't know if it was Nick, but whoever it was that put on the mask and came out of the bathroom or the basket. Oh, I was like, oh my God, that's it. And maybe, like I said, maybe after the fact, they're like, yes, and it totally works for the psychological situation of the character and the complexities of that's what we're doing after the fact, right? Maybe they didn't think that deeply on it, but whether, even if it is a happy accident, thank goodness, because it serves the makeup of the character really well. Really, really well. So those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on if Michael was wearing a different mask, would the character still have worked? The answer is maybe yes. If it was a similar type of mask, I think so, yes. If it was a completely different mask, like Richard Nixon, no. Not that the movie wouldn't have worked. It just would have been a different feel to the character, a different feel to the movie. It could have worked, but it just would have been different. You know what I mean? Those are my thoughts. So let's jump over to the Super Chat. and see what is, the super chat, over to the chat room and see what you guys are talking about. I do know there was a couple of super chats that did come in, and I don't want to miss them. So here we go. Here we go. All right. Super chat from Max Mode sends in $2. And oh, no, wait. Before that, he sent in $5. That's right. That's the one I didn't get. It says, Halloween H2O. How did Michael know where Marion Chambers lived? He broke in her house, but he had to steal Laurie's file. How did he know Marion's address? No idea. No idea. I have no idea. How did he know his way to the town? How does he know how to drive? Does he eat? Does he shit? Where does he shit? You know, where does he pee? Does he change? How come he didn't have any burns on his hands? How can he see when he was shot in the face, you know, and in the eyes? You know, how does he make money? What was he doing for the 20 years that he wasn't, you know, there? Where was he? I don't know. No idea. No idea, Max. Max Mode, $2. Do you own Halloween 18 or Kills on physical media? I own Halloween 18 on Blu-ray. But I don't own the others. The Bearded Entertainment sends in $5, says, in my opinion, no mask wouldn't work. And any other mask would work as long as it was solid white. That allows people to project their fears onto the mask. Well, I'm going to take that a step further and say, as long, it doesn't necessarily have to be white, but white is great because it helps to communicate the paleness, right? The emotionness. Now, what shade of white, you know, I think that's what I mean. What it doesn't have to be fish belly white necessarily, but some sort of pale color, I think is important. But I will go further and say that it has to be emotionless. It can't just be a white mask. It has to be an emotionless mask, right? Like you can't have a Richard Nixon mask or some mask like this and it's white. Now that doesn't mean it's not creepy and it's not scary and it wouldn't work in a different way. Absolutely. But for the character and the makeup of what makes up Michael Myers, it would have been that's not sort of, now it's a different feeling to the character, right? So I agree with you. I think, and I think, to be fair, I think no mask, funny enough, I think no mask would work better than a mask with an expression. I will tell you that. I think no mask would work better than a mask with an expression. And I think, but again, it would be very important for the actor to never convey emotion, right? That actor would like, you can't smile, you can't grunt, you can't go, no, it has to be just, do you know what I mean? So it makes things a lot more difficult for the actor. And obviously it's always better when you have a mask over, because then you can do those faces, when you're performing to get a better performance out of you, but the audience isn't necessarily seeing anything on the face. So, but I agree. Amaducia sends in $10 and says, in my opinion, the original mask is something that everyone can dump their own fears into, which creates a personalized boogeyman. It's almost a Nietzschean, I think I know who you're talking about, concept of staring into the abyss and the abyss stares back. Yes, I've heard that expression many times, or that quote many times, and there's a certain level of truth to what you're saying. You're absolutely correct. That's a good point. Taking it to that, it's very important to, especially when the character. See, if a character like Freddy, it doesn't make any. Now he's not wearing a mask, but a character like Freddy, it wouldn't make sense to have an expressionless mask on him because he's so expressive. It's all part of it. But for the character of Michael, yeah, it's very important. You could even say that the hockey mask from Friday the 13th is similar in the sense of that it is too expressionless. Now it's a different type of mask. It's not a humanoid mask. It's not human features necessarily. I mean, there's, two eyes and a nose, but it's not. It's not modeled after a human, but it is expressionless. I mean, there's really nothing there. So although Jason Voorhees, the character of Jason, doesn't carry the same ambiguity and the same mystique as Michael does, and it's not reliant on the same sort of, ambiguity as Michael, there is still an expressionless void there that you can project onto Jason. Now, when the hockey mask comes off, that's different because we see Jason's face. Now, you could say, well, at the end of Halloween 1978, we also see a little bit of expression on Tony Moran. I understand. Those are all fair points. But when the mask is on, and Jason's a very different character. Let me be very clear. Jason's a very different character than Michael Myers. We know his backstory. We know his motive. We know why he's doing what he's doing. There's no mystery there per se. With Michael, it's essential. It's essential to the character. But the hockey mask is emotionless. And so while Jason is in it and he's wearing it, it serves as this sort of emotionless character. This who doesn't feel anything. There is no expression. Again, not quite the same, but similar. Jordan Christie sends in $1.99 and says, would the ghost face mask work for Michael? Would the ghost face mask work for Michael? No, because the ghost face mask is modeled after the screen. It's like the what is it called? The screaming ghost or the scared ghost or something. It has an expression. Now, it's a ghost, so it's not quite human. I mean, maybe, because it's not a human face. It's a ghost face, no pun intended. But I think it's too much. I think the long mouth is too much, and the peanut eyes are just too much. It does have an expression, and I think it's important. Now, would it work better than like a Richard Nixon mask or so? Yes, perhaps, and it's white, so it works well with lighting it in certain scenes and things like that. But overall, I think it is still taking away. I don't find the Ghostface mask scary. I find the Michael Myers mask from Halloween 1 scary. And it's because there is no expression. It just is. There is no expression. So, in certain situations, maybe it would look creepy, but overall to the character, again, because we're talking about the character too, right? It's not just about how the mask looks at night or how cool it looks or how mysterious it looks. There has to be a connection to the theme, to the structure of the Michael Myers character, right? It's this relationship that the mask has to the character of Michael Myers. Any mask can look cool. Now, there'll be different degrees of coolness and what is scary or what's not or whatever. But you can make a Richard, Nixon mask or an Emmett Kelly mask or a Beatles mask. You can make any mask look creepy in the right lighting, in the right situation, at the right distance, in the right shots. And you can absolutely. Even the Ghostface mask, right? You put that on Myers, he's in the background. Ooh, that looks kind of creepy. Sure. But it doesn't, it's not molding and connecting to the structure of who the character is. And that's why, it's a relationship, right? It's a relationship between the character of Michael and the mask and what it represents, which is why it's so important that, people often like to tout that in the book. And it's like, listen, any book that comes out after the fact, as far as I'm concerned, is not canon to the film. That doesn't mean they don't take inspiration from it. But anytime you have to resort to a book to have something explained to you, I hate that. Maybe it's because I'm just not a big reader. I can read, but maybe it's just not because I'm not a big reader and I don't read books. And that's why I just loathe the fact that I have to do that, with some things. But we have to remember that the original novel, like the novel for the original Halloween, had Michael in like a mask with blue eyeshadow and big pink lipstick, in case you didn't know. So, you have to take things, with a grain of salt with that kind of stuff. And I don't think that mask works. Immediately, if I saw Michael Myers, the character of Myers, in a mask that was sort of a pale whitish blue with big blue eyeshadow, big red lips or whatever, it immediately sexualizes the character. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a sexual component to Myers. Maybe there is somewhere if you wanted to dive deep into that and explore that. He did murder his sister who was sitting topless, combing her hair. We can do think pieces and dive into the layers and try to fish out some sort of sexual kind of thing, which of course is in the book and all this kind of stuff. I get all that. But that's what it does, right? Now you're projecting. Now, when you're reading the book, you're being told what to think. You're being told how to feel. You're being told what to speculate on, and you're being guided into a certain direction. Whereas if the mask is just neutral, anybody can put their own assumptions onto it. I might have a different feeling than you, and you may have a different feeling than me, but we're all or thoughts about certain things. But at the end of the day, we're all converging onto the same sort of result, right? You know what I mean? We may have different paths in how we get there, but we're all sort of gunning to that same kind of thing. And that is something that I find fascinating and interesting about this stuff. This is the stuff that I love about film and about storytelling and character and that kind of stuff. And you can absolutely take it too far. I mean, John Carpenter and all these guys, they weren't necessarily thinking this deeply on it, although there's a little bit of that there. You don't write words like a blank, pale, emotionless face in the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, if you don't have a basic understanding of at least from a philosophical point of view, how that can relate to the psychological makeup of a character or lack thereof, right? So yeah, no, it's not just about the mask. It's about the relationship the mask has to the makeup of the character. All right, let me just, I think do I have all the super chats yet? I'm not sure. Okay, Antonis Andriotis sends in $5, says, "Hey Dave, are you excited for Saw 10? And what is your favorite trap in the Saw franchise? Are you going to see Evil Dead Rise and Renfield?" I don't even know what Renfield is. I am not excited for Saw 10. I couldn't give and I say this with all due respect to Saw fans out there, I couldn't give a frog's fat ass about another Saw movie. I think I stopped watching. I've only seen like the first 3 or 4 Saw films, and I can't even remember 2, 3, and 4 all that well. I think in 2 they had like a bunch of needles or something. That was kind of cool. I'm not a big Saw fan. I love the first Saw movie. Saw that in the theater when it came out. I think the first couple of Saws are all right. Like the first couple of sequels are okay. But I mean, just saying that, are you going to go see Saw 10? 38? With respect, no, I am not. And are you going to see Evil Dead Rise? I won't see it in the theater. I'm not a big Evil Dead fan. Again, that doesn't mean I don't like Evil Dead. It just means I'm not as emotionally attached to the Evil Dead franchise as some are. But the trailer looks bonkers and fun, although it showed a lot. But it looks like a lot of fun, but not something I would necessarily go out of my way to go to the theater to see. I'll wait till it comes to streaming. And Renfield, I don't know what Renfield is. Let me just look this up. Renfield. I've never heard of Renfield. Or maybe I have and I'm just having a brain fart. Renfield. There you go. 2023 horror fantasy. Nope, never heard of this movie. Interesting. What is this? Oh, okay. The Nicolas Cage vampire film. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that's what it was called. It goes to show you how checked out I am on that. No, I won't go see that either. I probably won't ever watch it. Just doesn't really interest me. Not my kind of horror. I mean, if it's a slow Sunday afternoon, it's raining or it's snowing, maybe, but probably not. Arthur Vega sends in $10. Says, hey, Dave, what if Michael Myers wore the Spock mask? Well, I think the Spock mask would have, the Spock mask, yes, the Spock mask is emotionless. Now we're talking about the Spock mask from then, right? Dom Post, 75. The Spock mask is emotionless-ish, although it has a little more emotion, I think. It's very subtle, but I think it's because the brow, because it's Spock, the brow is a little more furrowed. I think it's a little more like, kind of like that, just a little bit, I think. Now, maybe if you were to remove the eyebrows, maybe that would help. I'm not sure. But it's also very clearly Spock. And I don't know if spray paint, even if you were to remove this, and I don't know, because also the ears are pointed as well. So you would have to chop off the ears or do something to the ears so they're not Vulcan ears, right? And that they don't come to a point. And because then it's clearly Spock. I think I've seen people spray paint and sort of make a Michael Myers Spock mask, and all I see is Spock. So I think it probably is too identified. It's too immediately identified. Now, would it have worked from a distance, being cool, seeing what? Yeah, probably. But I think there's just a little, even though it's subtle, I think there's just a little too much emotion in the Spock mask for it to work. Wolfman's got nards. Barry, what's going on? Barry sends in £5 and says, I don't mind Michael wearing a different mask in the Halloween movies as long as he keeps that sweet Stan Winston mask on in Halloween H2O. Do you mean like a different mask altogether? Like in one movie, he's got the William Shatner mask. In the next movie, he's got a Richard Nixon mask. Is that what you mean? You see, yeah, well, I guess when we get to the sequels, it's a bit different, right? Because now we're talking about sequels and the relationship that Michael Myers has to he's not the same Michael. Now he's got motive in the sequels, and now he's part of a cult. It's not his fault. We know what it is, and so the relationship that Michael has to his mask can change and does change a little bit because they could never actually nail down the same mask again. So I think it depends on what we're talking about, but certainly in that first movie, it works really well. It would change the relationship. Yeah. It's all about, for me, and I only speak for me, it's not just about a cool looking mask that looks cool from a distance in like at night. Yeah, that's cool. But a lot of masks can do that. It's also, I have to go that step further. It's also the relationship that the mask has to the character. And that's one of the reasons, I mean, Barry, of course, is a huge fan of Halloween H2O, but that's one of the reasons why I don't agree with the creative decisions made in the in Halloween H2O. It loses that relationship to the character for me. But it also lost that for me in Halloween 2 from 1981 when you show his eyes. Do you know what I mean? So even though I like Halloween 2, I think it's the best sequel in the franchise. There are certain things in that movie that I would not have done because of that exact thing. But you're already establishing a motive now, so you're already changing the relationship and who Michael is because you're letting more out. It really only works for that first movie because that first movie, there is no rhyme or reason for doing what he's doing. And we could even make the argument that he wasn't going after Laurie. You can make that argument in Halloween 1978. That doesn't mean that Laurie was not the catalyst that fueled his obsession in these three girls. But once he follows them to the street, he doesn't go right to the Doyle house. He goes left to the Wallace house. and really, you could say, well, he was setting traps for Laurie. Was he? Yes, he displayed the bodies, but there's no evidence to suggest that he was displaying those bodies for Laurie. He may have been displaying those bodies for the Wallaces who were coming home that night, or for the police that were going to show up later. I mean, they could have been for anybody. It was just happens. Again, we're thinking about this really nerdly here, but Laurie went over to the house because she wanted to know what the hell was going on, but there's no direct evidence to suggest that he was doing it for Laurie. There's no evidence at all that Laurie would have been attacked that night had she not gone over to the house, right? So again, you can make arguments for either way, but certainly you can say that. And so that original movie, because there's so much mystique and so much ambiguity, and it just is this funnel of just nothingness, just this void, this blank nothingness. She isn't his sister. He isn't her brother. There is no cult. There is no, there's nothing. It is just, predator and prey. That's why The Mask, when it works so well, because of this, almost this symbiotic relationship with Michael. But I know a lot of people love the H2O mask. I'm not a fan of it, but a lot of people do. Let me see. I'm just refreshing. I just want to make sure I don't think I've missed any super chats, right? Wolfman Scott Nards is the last one. Arthur Vega. Hey Dave, what if Michael Myers wore a Spock mask? Okay, so I've got everybody so far so good, which is good. All right. I think this is an interesting topic, personally. I mean, I know some people are probably going to watch this vid and be like, oh my God, Dave's stretching for content. Not really. Like I said, my schedule is all over the place. So there are times where I'm so busy, I'll have like one video in 10 days or something like that. So whenever there's an opportunity for me to get on here and hang out or whatever, and yeah, why not? And I thought it was an interesting topic. Just because of where I took it, right? I mean, you can look at it surface level and just go, no, I think it's yeah or no, whatever, it'd be cool for this or whatever. But I always like to take it that one extra step to make it worth thinking about. So hopefully I've allowed some of my viewers today to at least think about it in maybe a different way. I'm not sure. Let me see here. Johnny Cahill says, in the dark and at certain angles, the H2O looks pretty good. It isn't the worst mask ever, though, in my opinion. Well, that depends on which H2O mask you're talking about, because there was about, 3 H2O masks in that movie, and they all cut together. Like, I mean, they all, yeah, I'm not a fan. I will say, though, I do agree with you that there are a couple of shots in that movie where the mask looks pretty good. One of them is, I mean, in relation to, look, I mean, it doesn't look like the original, but, where we came from, again, it's relative, right? I think if it's relative, because we had the 4 mask, we had the 5 mask. I know people love the 6 mask. I guess it's not 5. I guess we'll say that. But had the Halloween 6 mask been the Halloween 4 mask, I think people would have hated it, because it would have been like, what's this? It's relative, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, coming off of the Halloween 5 mask to get the 6 mask probably feels, oh, this is not bad. Oh, it's bad. It's terrible. It looks nothing like the original mask, but it's a lot better than the 5 mask, so we accept it. Oh, it's really good. It's really good. There's a scene, the bathroom scene in Halloween H2O, when the woman takes her little girl into the bathroom. There's a shot of Michael before he's leaving, when the woman is looking through the crack of the door, and he stops. He just kind of goes like this and then keeps going. The mask looks cool. Like, it looks good. I remember when I saw the movie in the theater, I remember thinking it looks pretty good. I think the 6 mask that they use, because they used I think there's 4 masks actually, now that I think about it. There was the CGI mask, which doesn't really count, but there's that. There's the Stan Winston mask. There's the alien mask, as they call it. And there's the Halloween 6 mask. So there's 4 Michael Myers masks that they use in H2O. The Halloween 6 mask, you notice when Chris Duran, like at the very beginning, when he kills Marion Chambers, he's wearing the 6 mask. For whatever reason, it looks better on him than it did in Halloween 6. I'm not a fan of the 6 mask. Again, is it better than the 5 mask? Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But that's not a high bar. You know what I mean? That's not a high bar. The 4 mask is better than the 5 mask, you know? So I think that, I think it's interesting. It's interesting. But yeah, there's a couple of shots, couple of moments, but overall, not a fan. Yeah, Evil Alex says the CGI mask is the worst. And I don't quite understand why they needed to even do that. I'd have to watch the movie again. If Wolfman is still watching, maybe he can give some insight into this. But I don't even understand. I mean, listen, I can understand because you want to show Michael. Okay. But for those of you that are maybe not old enough to remember, or were not old enough to see the movie in the theater, the CGI mask looked like dog shit in 1998. It's not like, well, you know, it's just the effects haven't aged that well. No, they were dog shit in 1998. Everybody in 1998 was like, what the fuck is that? It's not like they were great for the time. No, they were shit then. So I don't understand why you even have that shot in there, because I would have just gone to the eyeball that we see, right? You know, we see his eyeball and we kind of see his Michael, and then just cut away. That's what I would have. I wouldn't have cut to the other angle to show Michael going, that's what he looks like. He looks like this. Like, I mean, look, why don't he? What the hell are we doing? Show. I would have been like, yeah, no, we need to cut that. Oh, but just show us. No, cut it. It looks like dog shit. Now, unless I'm misremembering and they needed to have that angle in there, or there just was no way to cut around it, but I don't think I am, because I'm pretty sure you could have he could have turned around, and yeah, you would have had to do a little, because I know he turns around and then you see his face, but maybe turn around and figure out something, you know, just something. Cut around it somehow. You could have cut around it somehow. You absolutely could have cut around it somehow. For sure. For sure. 100%. And I would never have shown that. I would have been like, yeah, guys, thanks for trying. Really appreciate your hard work. You're still going to get paid. They still would have got paid. I mean, it's not like if it's not in the movie, they don't get paid. No, the visual effects artists would have gotten paid, and they would have gotten paid what they're owed. But I would have been like, hey, don't worry, we're going to pay you. Absolutely, 100%. Really appreciate you, giving your shot. I'm surprised it actually looks, but this just doesn't, we can't. Totally. It's so weird to me. There's no reason they needed to show that. No reason whatsoever. Dream Villain says, Dave, are all the masks as bad as the Resurrection angry, mad-looking mask? It's funny. I don't think the Resurrection mask is as bad as everybody says it is. I think there are moments that the Resurrection mask looks terrible. Looks absolutely terrible, and looks like I don't know, somebody it looks terrible. But there are moments and shots of that mask that actually look not bad. Not bad. If somebody asks, what is the worst mask in the franchise? Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends. The Resurrection mask is up there. The 5 mask is absolutely up there. The 5 mask isn't even like you can look at the Resurrection mask and you can see Michael Myers in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can look at the resurrection mask and it may not be your favorite and maybe it's near the bottom, but you can look at it and you can go, I can see Myers in here. I can't look at the Halloween 5 mask and see Myers. I see nothing. I see nothing. Absolutely nothing. You know, so it is one of the worst. Again, it all depends on what we're measuring. What do you think is the worst mask? Well, what's the measuring stick? What's the criteria? Well, for me, it would be, what's the mask that looks the least like Michael Myers? Well, that would probably be the Halloween 5 mask, right? I mean, I think it looks the least like Michael Myers. You could put 4 on there, you know? I mean, I wouldn't hold it against you if you thought it was 4. I mean, 4 doesn't, you know. But the resurrection mask, no, it kind of looks like Michael. It just looks strange. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can kind of see it there. The Halloween 6 mask, you know, Halloween H2O. I mean, yeah, I hate the shot of him walking down the hall and big afro and big eye cuts. And it's just not scary. And this is not, you know, I'm not trying to you know, disrespect Chris Durand or anything like that. It's not personal, or any H2O fans. I don't think H2O is scary at all. I don't think Michael in H2O is scary at all. But I do understand, and I'm not saying that this is the reason for fans, but I do understand its relevancy in pop culture. For a lot of people, it was your favorite Halloween, or the first Halloween film you ever saw. For a lot of people, it was the first Halloween film you ever saw in the movie theater. There's a nostalgic connection to it. And certainly there is an argument to be made that the arc that Laurie Strode has is better than the arc that she had in the David Gordon Green trilogy. There is an argument to be made there for sure. But there's just so much, it's too 90s, it's too Dawson's Creek, it's too horror light, it's too, for me, that's how I feel. But that's not necessarily how everybody feels, right? I just don't find Michael, when I see Michael in, like, every time I see Michael Myers, every single time I see Michael Myers in Halloween 1978, he has presence. Every time, every shot, every time, every angle, doesn't matter what it is. In H2O, I don't, you know, it's nothing there, right? And it's not exclusive to H2O. There's a lot of films that are like that. There's a lot of films that you know, that are like that I feel that way about. But yeah, no, if somebody asked me what is the worst Michael Myers mask, I'm going to say, okay, well, what's the mask that looks the least like Michael Myers? You know, and then you could ask, well, what is Michael Myers? Well, that would be the foundation for which the character was established. Halloween 1, 1978. And it's not because I'm a purist. It's because that is the establishment, the birth of the character. That's the birth of the character. So that is the standard for which all masks will be upheld to. Because that, if the Halloween 5 mask was the mask that was in 1978, that would be the benchmark. That would be the mask for which all Michael Myers masks would have to adhere to, right? That's just the way it is. So, but it's not. It's the other way around. So, I think the Halloween 5 mask probably looks the least like Michael Myers. Then followed maybe by 6, maybe by H2O, 4. You know, it's that kind of thing, right? Even the Rob Zombie mask from Halloween 1978 wouldn't be near the bottom. If we're talking about the worst Michael Myers masks, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be anywhere near close to the bottom, because it looks more like Michael Myers than half of the other sequels do, right? Again, it depends on what we're measuring. You know, if you're measuring just what one do you like the best, well, that's a different order, right? That's a different list. Because then it doesn't matter if it looks like him or not. It's all about what one you like the best. And then the Michael Myers mask from Part 5 might be at the top of the list because you like that the best. Well, that's a different order, right? That's a different order. Or a different set of criteria. All right, let me see here. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, do you think we will ever get a creepy mask again in a future horror movie? I think there's lots of creepy masks. I think we just have to, it's just things have changed. You know, I think horror has changed. Things have changed. How we consume media has changed. You know, I've said this before, but it is true. It's a very different world. We are more desensitized and saturated with imagery and things. The very little will scare us now. We often have to go to the extreme, or to torture porn, or, you know, to be scary, or like whatever the thing is. And I put that in quotes because obviously I don't find torture porn scary necessarily. You know, like it sounds like an overused cliche to say this, but it is true. If you go back to the 80s, right, there was no internet. And so we were not doing this. We were not surfing line. We were not on our phones every 5 fucking seconds with just image. And so there were so many things that, like, I remember, I don't know if I want to tell that story. It's kind of in bad taste. But anyway, it's just when the internet was kind of, the threshold is so big now, you know? I mean, like, think about this. Just think about this sentence. Think about this sentence. In 1973, it's 50 years ago. It's a long time ago. But in 1973, when The Exorcist came out, nobody had seen anything. Actually, let me actually go one up. It's not horror, but I think it's a better example of what I'm talking about. When the original Star Wars was released in 1977, okay, now that's 2 years before I was born. So I grew up in a world where there's always been Star Wars, and many of you have, and many of you haven't. In 1977, when that movie came out, nobody had seen anything like it. That's not hyperbole. That is a fact that no movie had done that with special effects in the history of motion picture. Nobody had seen it. Nobody had seen anything like this before. What the hell am I seeing? If you've grown up in today's, like if you're 25 or you're 24 or whatever, and you've grown up with Marvel films and DC films, you can intellectualize that. You know, you understand the sentence, you know what it means, but you cannot possibly really know what that's like because it's always existed. It's always been there. You know, the only recent thing I can think of, and this is a tamer version of it, because obviously, you know, is when Avatar came out in 2009. I don't care if you like the movie or not, okay? We're just talking about a technological standpoint here. When Avatar came out in 2009, nobody had seen anything like this, not in this way, right? The way that the way it was created and done, and the world and the technology and the 3D, we hadn't seen anything like this before in this way. It's why it became the highest grossing movie of all time. Again, not because it's the greatest movie of all time, but because it was an experience, right? It's like Star Wars in 1977 became the highest grossing motion picture in history, knocking off Jaws. Why? Well, it's also a really good movie, but it's not just because of that, because it was a technological, nobody's ever seen what the hell? Holy fucking shit. Nobody's seen anything like it. It is so hard to reach and to do something like that again. Right? Like Avatar 2, I went and saw, thought it was fantastic. That's me. I'm a big Avatar fan. Loved it. Thought it was great, right? Was my experience watching Avatar 2 the same as watching Avatar? No. Not that Avatar 2 was not, it was incredible. And yes, the animation had like the effects have improved, and they're still amazing in part 1. They still hold up. Yes, it is amazing, but it was more of a confirmation, right, to this world. It was incredible, but I've already been here, but it was amazing to return. It wasn't the technological leap forward that the first Avatar was, not that it needed to be. But that just goes to show you that the threshold of that is like, where do we need to go to experience Star Wars for the first time again? Where do we need to go to experience in horror? Let's take it back to horror. Where do we need to go to experience Elm Street again? Where do we need to go to experience The Exorcist again? I don't know. I don't know, because we are so desensitized now with everything. It's been done. It's in terms of that holy shit. Like in 73 when The Exorcist came out, nobody'd seen anything like that. Nobody'd seen anything like that. The fuck? I mean, you had people fainting and I don't mean fainting, because it was gory. They were fainting because there were so many religious Christians going that it felt too real for them. I mean, kid, you watch The Exorcist today, you kind of chuckle and think people thought this was real. Yes! Because nobody's seen anything like it. So what is that for us in 2023? I think it's going to come down to, I know your question was, do I think another creepy mask is going to, but as you can see, I'm trying to connect the dots here. I don't know. Because we've seen it all. We've been there, done that. We've got the t-shirts. Do you think there'll be another? I don't know. Maybe. There's always horror movies that come along, but like a horror movie that like reinvents the genre or like does, I don't know. I mean, you look at Terrifier 2 and, but Terrifier 2 is a, people didn't go to, I'm not saying people don't like it, but Terrifier 2 it's a gimmick. There's a shtick around it, right? And I'm not knocking the movie. I'm just saying that it's an exploitative splatter, and so the reason why people were flocking to the theaters to see it was not because it was a good movie. And I'm not saying it isn't, okay? If you thought it was great, but that's not why people were going. People were going to see it because of the gimmick, right? Because of the shtick, right? Like Avatar. You got to go fucking see this movie. Avatar, like, holy shit, is the world. And it's so immersive and it's amazing. And it was a classical story, right? It was a classical, but it was the world. Holy shit. Well, Terrifier is like, holy shit, you got the blood and the people throwing up and then people are like, oh, I gotta go fucking check this out. Holy shit, people are barfing. I gotta go. There's an angle, there's a hook to it, right? You know what I mean? And maybe that's the future. We got to get hooks to movies and we got to get people, there has to be like a shtick to it, or something. I don't know. I don't know, man. I have no idea. I don't know. It's not in the same ways. Not in the same ways. But it's also relative, right? I know I'm going on here, but this is a really good topic. It's also relative because every generation has their own version of that, right? There are people that, believe it or not, and maybe you're not one of them, but believe it or not, there are people who are in their 20s who will watch A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984 and think it's dog shit. It's old, it's dated, the acting sucks, the effects are shit, because they grew up in a world with, The Conjuring, and Barbarian and, all that. That's their world. Whereas them watching A Nightmare on Elm Street, for us, it still holds up because we're like, oh yeah. But them watching Elm Street is like us watching a movie from the 40s. Do you know what I mean? It can be relative too, right? There are movies that are blowing kids away today that for us, we're just like, because we grew up, we saw the transition, or I guess I should say that's the other way around. They're more, whatever. But we're more like, holy shit, because we saw the transition. That's what I mean. So yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough to break that barrier and to introduce a horror movie to horror audiences, something you've never seen, to get that same sort of whoa. Especially with the slasher subgenre, no, you're never going to get it with this. We've been there and done. That doesn't mean you're not going to get good slasher movies. That doesn't mean you're not going to get good, I'm not saying that, but to experience a Freddy again for the first time, well, I mean, we've been there, done that. and the slasher subgenre now is more B-movie stuff, right? Like I've said 1,000 times, yes, you do get slashers going to the theater, but they are usually sequels to the old films that were successful, right? Halloween, Elm Street, Friday, Chucky, Candyman. There's not a new slasher, getting a massive wide release, because it's more of a niche subgenre now. And studios don't want to take that risk. So instead you're getting like hybrids, like Megan or Barbarian or elevated horror like Hereditary and Get Out and things like that. So yeah, it's fascinating. It's an interesting topic that, I guess I spend a lot of time on it because I do get asked it, do you think we'll ever have another? No, not in the same way. That's the past. It's the golden age of slashers is done. It's like, are we ever going to get that feeling again like it was in the 60s with, or the, 50s with Elvis? No, it's done. It's over. Music's a thing now. Rock and roll's in the 50s, rock was new. It's not new anymore. That doesn't mean there's not going to be great rock songs and great rock bands, but there'll never be that first time ever again. It'll just be. But that doesn't mean we can't have first times for different things, but not in the same ways. It's crazy. All right, let me see here. This has been a nice show, nice Sunday afternoon, just chilling with you guys for a little bit. This has been good. Let me see. Scroll back here. Geeked Out Turtle Fan says the original Star Wars came out 3 years before I was born. So you're born in 1980, so you're a year younger than me. Aaron Click says, Dave, ironically, you sounded like C-3PO when he was storytelling to the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. Oh, well, there's a C-3PO in everybody. Evil Alex says Flash Gordon series was there, but not that big budget looking like Star Wars. Well, no. Well, that's just it. It's not that there weren't sci-fi films. I mean, look at 2001. When it came out, it was kind of like, holy shit, right? I mean, you have to understand, nobody had seen anything like it. When 2001: A Space Odyssey came out, now it's a bit different. It's not, it's different, but the effects still hold up today. And it's far more realistic as well, because every time they cut to the space scenes, it's quiet. It's deadly silent, right? Star Wars is not science fiction. It's fantasy, really. Because, if you travel at the speed of light, by the time they get back from wherever they're going, everybody be dead. You can't, it's not like you travel at the speed of light in real time. Anyway, it's a whole other thing. But nobody's seen anything like it. 2001 was, what the fuck? Now we watch it, we're like, yeah, whatever, seen that 5 trillion times. Yeah, but in 1968, nobody had seen anything like it. That's why it's like very rarely do those kinds of movies come along anymore. Very rarely are they, because they're not just event films, right? Like Avengers Endgame was an event film. But in terms of the effects and everything, I'm not saying they're not great effects. I'm just saying, and you're not wowed by them, but it's nothing we haven't seen before, right? But every now and then, event films come along, and they're very far and few between now. I think the real last event film that I can think of that came along that was not just an event film, but was technology we had never seen before was the, first Avatar from 2009. Before that, again, not just event films that are like something we've never seen before. Before that, maybe Jurassic Park, 93. Well, I don't know if that was the last one, but that certainly was an event film that was also using technology we had never seen before, right? And then before that, you may go back to then there's a bunch of them glommed together, like your E.T., your Star Wars, your Jaws, things like that. They're event films, but they're shit we haven't seen before. So yeah, it's very far and few between do we get them. I think eventually it's going to, the way we consume, and I've talked about this, many times, but the way we consume our media and things like that is going to change. Virtual reality and virtual worlds and things like that, I think, are really the next. It's not that we're going to not get them with movies still, but I think that will be that's a level that is going to wow us and like, holy shit. And also too, no glasses 3D. That's something James Cameron was working on. No glasses 3D. Now, the technology was not perfected in time for Avatar: The Way of Water. It may or may not be ready to go for Avatar 3 in a couple years. I don't know. But if he can perfect that for a future Avatar film in the next few years here, that's going to be the next wow. That's going to be the next experience. Sitting in a theater without having to put fucking glasses on and the film is in 3D. That's going to be wild. That's going to be wild. All right. So it's going to continue to move in that direction, I think. Super chat comes in from Lamontre Gillard, sends in $1.99. Thank you, and says, new to your channel, Dave, and I'm loving it a lot. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the McRae family. Welcome to the McRae family. And thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Let me see here. Was there a super chat that I missed? Okay, let me go back here. It's entirely possible. One came in that I missed. Let me see. Yes, there it is. $2 from Max Mode. Thank you, Max. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Because as you know, the chat room can scroll by. And if you have a YouTube channel, if you don't have one, you will know this now. Those of you that have a YouTube channel that are monetized and maybe you're getting super chat, you'll know that sometimes the channel, the chat room will like bump. It'll kind of almost like refresh. And so sometimes you'll miss one. It's not that it doesn't go through and it's not that it's not there, but sometimes you don't see it. So I appreciate that. And the smaller, and I'm not saying this to get people to send in super chats. I'm not saying this. I'm just giving you a fact on how super chats work. The smaller the super chat, the less time that it's up there on the top. The larger the super chat, the more time it's up there. So even if it bumps and it goes by, I can see that there's one that I have to go back and check. Again, because there's somebody that's thinking this. I'm not saying that to tell you to send in larger super chats. I'm just telling you how it actually does factually work. And so that's probably why I missed it, because it's $2 and it wasn't up there for very long. So I count on you guys to let me know. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Max Mode sends in $2 and says, the ending of The Mist 2007, that is all. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say, are you talking about like something we haven't seen before? I wouldn't necessarily say that falls in the same category as that, but it's certainly a shocking ending. Yes, a shocking ending in terms of, yeah, maybe it's something we haven't seen before but being shocked like that, by an ending to a movie is not necessarily something we haven't seen before. But yeah, what a terrific ending. I like The Mist. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I like it more and more that I watch it. I just think some of the effects, especially with like the worm, it didn't hold up to me in 2007. I rented this movie and I remember watching it in 2007 thinking it kind of doesn't really hold up that well, or that it didn't look that good in 2007. So there's some of the CG with the worm I didn't like. But other than that, I do think it's a solid film. And I wish Frank Darabont would direct more movies, because I think he's great. All right. Eddie Chase sends in $1.99 and says, wouldn't work because he still had it on at end part 1. Eddie, I'm not quite sure what you're saying. Wouldn't work because he still had it on at the end of part 1. I assume you're talking about Michael Myers, but I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. What wouldn't work? I'm not quite sure what you mean. Are you talking about if Michael had a different mask? Well, we're just talking about like from the beginning, from the get-go, right? From the very start, he had a different mask. Like if, would it have worked if it was a William Shatner mask, or would the character have worked if it wasn't a William Shatner mask. That's what we were talking about. Or maybe you're talking about something else. My apologies, Eddie. Just kind of bring me up to speed on that. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. Scott Mariano sends in $4.99. Thank you, Scott, and says, hey, Dave, could Terminator 2 be considered an event film? The effects seemed way ahead of its time for 1991. I don't know. I don't recall Terminator 2. Now, Terminator 2 was the first movie to ever have a $100 million budget. And the effects in that movie absolutely were amazing. The effects in The Abyss were amazing too. That was sort of before Terminator 2. Definitely the effects used in Terminator 2 helped Jurassic Park, helped people realize that maybe we could do this. But Jurassic Park became the highest grossing movie, I think, in North America at that time. I think it overtook E.T. I'm going to say no. Not that Terminator 2 didn't do well. It absolutely embedded itself into the science fiction pop culture zeitgeist. It's one of the great sequels ever made, 100%. One of the best sci-fi films ever made. Absolutely. But I don't remember, I remember going, it was difficult to get tickets to Jurassic Park. It was sold out for weeks. There were lineups around the corner. Do you know what I mean? It was event status. You have to see the big dinosaur movie. Terminator 2 was just kind of it did well. It did very well. But it was just a summer blockbuster. There's summer blockbusters and then there's summer blockbusters. Do you know what I mean? There's big. And so it was just kind of that thing, I think. When did T2 come out? Let me see here. Terminator 2. I'm just going to go to the box office here. So Terminator 2 box office mojo. Let me see here. So, okay, it made $520 million worldwide. Its budget was $102 million. That's a big take. For sure. That's a big take. I'm not going to say no. I mean, again, it came out in 1991. I was 12. So I just don't remember. It made 205 domestic. I don't remember people. I don't remember it in the same ways that I remember the pop culture impact like Jurassic Park. I'm not going to say no. I just have to do a bit of digging into the time period and into, because, again, I was 12, so I have to go back and kind of look to kind of see what was going on. So I'm going to say maybe, but I'm going to say I don't know, which is fair. But definitely Jurassic Park. I mean, I remember it took a couple of weeks to try and get tickets to see that thing. It was sold out for weeks. It was huge. And it also carried the name Steven Spielberg, right? Now, James Cameron, obviously, he was not a nobody, but Terminator was a film that was, kind of an underground kind of thing. He did Aliens and then The Abyss. So he really had Aliens as the big juggernaut. And then he did The Abyss, which I don't think The Abyss was huge. I don't think The Abyss was huge. I think The Abyss, The Abyss was not a huge film. It made $54 million domestic total, under $100 million worldwide. So the film that put James Cameron on the map was actually not Terminator. It was Aliens, is what put him on the map. So in 1991, when Terminator 2 came out, and I'm just speculating here, but I'm looking at sort of, I'm giving kind of, it's not that he was a nobody, but you can't compete with the name Spielberg. So absolutely, Spielberg also helped to sell Jurassic Park and make it an event film, because this was during Spielberg's prime as well, right? It was huge. It was huge. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say I don't think it would classify as an event film. But I understand why you asked the question. Eddie Chase sends in $4.99 and says, also, no, because Halloween 2 was direct continuation and he walked away with the mask on. Yet if some reason mask was gone, the mask is part of him calling card. Again, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, Eddie. We're not talking about if the mask came off. We're talking about if it was a different mask altogether. That's what we're sort of talking about. But again, maybe you're oh, here we go. Eddie says, only time made sense of... Okay, Eddie, you're continuing to send in stuff, which is great, and I appreciate that. You say, only time made sense for him not to have it was age 4. Okay, so you're sending in super chats talking about if he never had it, if he never had a mask. Okay, I get it now. And H18, Kirk mask was too iconic to be replaced. It was blank and creepy. Yes, so Eddie, we were talking about, maybe you're kind of late to the show today. We were talking about, to your point, and I will get to the others here in a second. I agree with you, but I do feel that it didn't have to be the William Shatner mask. As long as it was a human, emotionless face, because that's really the connection to the structure of the character. You can create any mask really to look creepy in light, right? Or in dark shadows and split lighting. You craft the lighting. You can make any mask. Now you're going to have a different feeling, right? If Michael was wearing a big clown mask that was like this, it's going to be creepy and scary, but in different ways. But it also doesn't necessarily connect to the structure of the character. So I get what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying here, but I take it a step further and say that it didn't have to be the Shatner mask specifically. It just needed to be a blank, emotionless human face with no expression. And if you were to paint that white and cut out the eye holes in the same way, or whatever, and, take off the eyebrows, then I think the effect would have been the same. Now, we are very emotionally attached to the Shatner mask, and it's hard for us to imagine another mask altogether. I understand that, but that's how I feel about it. Is that as long as it was like the film, the 1960 French film Eyes Without a Face. Again, very emotionless, creepy. You light that in a very sort of creepy way and that kind of stuff. I think the same effect would have been there, in my opinion, of course, but I get what you're saying, Eddie. I get what you're saying. Okay. I got the Eddie, the one who, for some reason, the mask was gone. The mask in part 2 of him is his calling card. JT Mills sends in $9.99. Thank you, JT, and says, have you read the Halloween Night Dance? The Halloween Night Dance comic series? No, I haven't. I've never heard of this. I personally think it's the best Halloween sequel never adapted to film and gets the mythology and mood right where the David Gordon Green trilogy failed. Fascinating, JT. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'm going to look into that. Halloween Night Dance. The first thing I thought of was that Michael Myers dresses up and goes to like a Halloween high school dance. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. The Halloween Night Dance. Fascinating. Very interesting. Thanks, JT, for bringing that to my attention and putting it on my radar. I appreciate that. Tokyo Convertible 87 says, Dave is the man with the golden voice. Oh, well, thank you, Tokyo. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. Evil Alex says, your face down there on the frame of the stream. What's going on? Your face down there. Oh, your face down there on the frame of the stream would work as a mask too. No emotion. Oh, my face there. Yeah, it's true. It's true. But to the point, right? That's the idea. Again, I understand that it's very difficult for Halloween fans and horror fans to imagine another face that isn't the William Shatner Captain Kirk 1975 Don Post mask. I totally understand that because it is so embedded into our brains and into the horror zeitgeist, into pop culture. Totally understand. But if we pretend that didn't happen, I believe that another mask besides the Shatner mask would have absolutely worked, but it would have had to have been in the same spirit. And it would have had to have been a humanoid, emotionless, no expression, pale face. Absolutely. In my opinion. Let me see here. Dream Villain says, Dave, Harry Potter was an event film. I don't know. I don't know. I think the first one, yes. I think Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, as it's released in the United States, it's actually the Philosopher's Stone. I would say that the first one definitely, and you definitely have a huge Harry Potter fan base. But the more sequels there are, like, you know, Return of the Jedi was not an event film, right? You know, but the first Star Wars was, because nobody had seen anything like it. Of course, that's a different time period as well. Harry Potter was a little after my time. Like, I mean, when the first movie came out, I was already in my 20s. So I'm not, and I've seen some of the movies and I think they're cool. But they're not geared, like, I'm not the demographic it was geared towards. So I would say that the first one, I would say there's an argument to be made because it was coming off of very successful books. And there were definitely a lot of Potterheads out there and it was huge. But usually event films will become, I got to think about this a bit more. I'm very picky and very choosy on what I classify as an event film because it's very easy to classify just popular movies event films, right? And just because a movie's popular and does well at the box office doesn't mean it's an event film. Right? There's a set of criteria that I think I need to be a little more definitive on. And to be fair, I haven't given it really, you know, a whole lot of thought. You know, I'm just sort of shooting from the hip here. This actually might make a cool topic for a future video. You know, like what is an event film and what is the criteria? Of course, it's not an exact science. I mean, this would just be my opinion, of course. I can understand, but I wouldn't necessarily say the Harry Potter films. Now you say film. I assume maybe you mean the first one. But that doesn't mean, I mean, event films, I'll just say this. Event films doesn't necessarily, listen, event films are popular films. They do become popular, but that doesn't mean that all popular films that do well at the box office are event films. Do you know what I mean? In my opinion, we can sort of, we can figure it out a bit more and structure it with a bit more, be more concise and have sort of a criteria that it would fit, in my opinion. But again, going back to 2001 when the Philosopher's Stone came out, or the Sorcerer's Stone. I don't know if you guys know that, but the actual book is called The Philosopher's Stone. It was released here in Canada as Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, but it was released in the US as Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I believe the US is the only market where it was released as the Sorcerer's Stone. And from what I remember at the time, because I think I was working at a video store at the time, it was because they changed it to, I'm not making this up, they changed it to Sorcerer's Stone for the American audience because they felt that the American audience, the American kids wouldn't understand what a philosopher was. I remember that being the reason. Now, maybe there's a little more to it than that, but I remember that vividly thinking, really? You know, sorry, kid, we think you're too fucking dumb. We think you're too dumb. Just saying. It's like, really? But there might be an argument to be made in there. There might be. But keep in mind, event films are very far and few between. Okay? There isn't an event film every year. There isn't an event film every 5 years. You know, event films are you know, like The Force Awakens was an event film, right? You know, the first Avatar was an event film. You know, Avengers Endgame was an event film. But The Avengers, I wouldn't classify as an event film, right? From 2012, right? So again, that doesn't mean that these movies aren't big and they don't do well, or but there's certain things I gotta figure it out. I'll figure it out, and I'll come to the table with a set of again. It's not an exact science. You're free to disagree with me. I like to kind of be specific. Be specific. All right. Have I missed any super chats? I don't see anybody. Okay, I got Eddie Chase there. You sent $1.99. I'll get that one, Eddie. Eddie sends in $1.99 and says, to be fair, Emmett Kelly clown could have worked Erie. Well, I disagree. And the reason why I disagree is because it's not about, for me, I don't know if you've been watching the stream from the beginning. Now, you're free to think that. And I agree that it would have been a very eerie mask, but I don't think it would have been the right mask, because it's all about how it connects to the psychological foundation and structure of the Michael Myers mask character, right? I had notes up here a little earlier, and I was talking about how, where are my notes here? This is from a couple years ago. The emotionless face of the Michael Myers mask is a vital aspect of the Michael Myers character in the original Halloween. One of the main themes in Halloween, the original, is the idea of a seemingly normal person committing horrific acts of violence. The mask serves to emphasize this theme by obscuring any human emotion that may be present on the actor. So again, the Emmett Kelly mask is an eerie mask. And again, when we say it could have worked, well, what do we mean? Of course it could have worked. It just would have been different, right? It would have been a different feeling to the character. It would have been, a different feeling to the film. Because the Emmett Kelly mask has a sad face. So now you are projecting an emotion onto the mask where thereby you are projecting an emotion to the audience, how the audience sees the character of Michael Myers, right? And like I said at the top of the show today, there would have been think pieces and essays written about how, Michael is sad and what does the sadness mean? And, he's sad inside and he's feeling sadness, even though that would have happened. That would have happened. So yes, any mask would have worked. Any scary mask would have worked. But would have worked how? Right? It would have been a different feeling. What do we mean by worked? Would it have been a good horror movie? Sure. If you left everything else the same, the music, peeking behind the bush, coming out of the darkness, everything else is the same. Would it have worked? Sure, yeah, but it would have been a different feeling to the film and a different feeling to the Myers character on a philosophical level, right? On a psychological, structural level, because the pale, emotionless face is the connection to the void and the lack of empathy and the lack of any sort of emotion to the character of Michael, right? To the character of Michael. He is emotionless. He is void of human anything. And that blank face is the symbol of that. And so, yes, the Emmett Kelly mask would have worked as in being a spooky mask on a guy in the dark, sure. But it wouldn't have had the same connection and relationship to the structure of Michael Myers, which I think really here is the bottom line, is the most important part. At least that's what I wanted this show to be about today. Like the main topic was the relationship between the character and the mask, not just a scary mask in the dark. Yes, any mask can be scary in the dark when it's lit well. But we're talking about the relationship between the two. And that's very, very important. Let me see. Okay, what do we got? I haven't missed any super chats, right? I don't see any angry faces. Any angry faces saying, Dave, you goddamn son of a bitch. You goddamn son of a... I'm not seeing any angry faces anywhere, which is good. All right. We are... Where the hell are you guys? There you guys are. I have so many tabs open. Da, 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 da. Let me see. Wayne Downey, watching football today, just popped in to say hi and like the video. Thanks, Wayne. Appreciate that, man. Hope your football team is doing well. Let me see here. I'm just trying to, you guys are talking amongst yourself about the mask. That's good. That's good. I like to get that conversation going, to get that conversation flowing. I like that. I like that. Thomas Cohn says Dave needs to be in a Canadian Green Day cover band. He looks exactly like Billy Joe Armstrong without the hat. Who is Billy Joe? What, they see the main guy on Green Day? Let me see here. God. And whenever anybody says I look like somebody, 9 times out of 10, I look nothing like that person. Okay, so the lead singer of Green Day. There's features that are similar. There's features that are similar. I don't think anybody would mistaken me for him, but there's features that are similar. Green Day. Whenever I think of Green Day, I think of Basket Case, because Basket Case came out when I was in high school. And that's what I think of. That's what I think of when I do you have the time to listen to? That's what I think of. Whenever I think of, I'm not a Green Day fan, so whenever I think of Green Day, that's what I think of. And that song, that one, oh fuck, there's that other one that came out. I forget. But anyway, that's what I think of. That's what I think of. It's gonna happen. Let me see. Bob Birkin says wearing a Megan mask would be creepy as fuck. Yeah, Megan. The problem with Megan is that the Megan mask is not. It's not emotionless. Now, it's not smiling, and it's not laughing, and it's not angry, but I don't look at the Megan mask and see neutral. Now, maybe it's because of the eyes. Maybe it's because it's female. And that's something to keep in mind, too. There's a little more accentuation maybe on the lip area because it is female. So there's more emotion into the subtle features. I mean, I know I'm sort of splitting hairs here to some that, or some might think that's what I'm doing, but when I look at it, it's not quite the same, but it could also be because it's not painted white and there's eyes. And I think maybe it's not, I wouldn't say that it's a mask that is full of emotion. It definitely is void of emotion. At least any sort of like outwardly obvious emotion. But I almost feel like there's something about the mask that feels like there could be something there. Like I could project a snootiness or a self-entitledness onto the look of the Megan mask. Whereas when I look at just the Michael Myers mask, there's just nothing. Like I don't feel any emotion. I don't get snooty. I don't get sad. I don't get happy. I don't get angry. I don't get anything. Nothing. Whereas the Megan mask, I feel, and again, it could be because we are very eye focused with that mask. And that those eyes may bring out any sort of micro, nuanced emotion that may otherwise not be there. In sort of the forming of the femininity, the feminine sort of nature of the mask. That's entirely possible. But it's interesting. It's interesting. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, do you think we will ever get a creepy mask again in a future horror movie? I thought you just asked that, Robert. That's what I was going on about earlier. my answer is yes, but it will never affect you in the same ways. I thought when I went on my tangent about like things, how we're descends, but to be fair, maybe I didn't answer your question directly, straight on. That's a fair point. Or you went to the bathroom and you came back and you missed it. I don't know. Yes, we will for sure, but it will always come down to, lighting. Is the movie good? Is it, on a character that is able to resonate with the audience? There's lots of creepy masks I've seen over the years from films that have just not crossed the threshold into the pop culture zeitgeist. There's the horror zeitgeist, and then there's the pop culture zeitgeist, and those are two different things. So we'll see. Okay. Let me see here. I have a few more minutes. We'll go 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes, and then we'll call it a day. 5 more minutes, and then we'll call it a day, ladies and germs, here on this Sunday afternoon. I know, crazy, like almost like all these streams, but like I said, I needed to capitalize and get some content up because I can go like a week or a week and a half without having anything on. It's just because it's busy. So when I see opportunities, I capitalize. And of course, tomorrow, 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Two Dudes and Some Bullshit, episode 170. What are we up to? 178, I think. 178 tomorrow night. Andrew Stevens, my man, Andrew Stevens, one of my great mods, says Sly's face could work as a Michael Myers mask. That would be a very, very interesting Michael Myers mask. That would be a very interesting Michael Myers mask indeed. Very much indeed. Let me see. I'm trying to get some people I haven't seen before. Or maybe just haven't been in here for a little bit. Sebastian says, Dave, you should do a what if each slasher film has a killer swapped. For example, what if Halloween had Freddy as the killer, Friday had Michael, and Nightmare had Jason, something like that. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of fun, but everything else remains the same. See, some things would have to change because Freddy is a dream demon, right? And he gets you in your dreams. So structurally, narratively, now the girls in Halloween would have to, like, you can't just pick them out and plop them into each other's franchises without some of the story having to evolve and change, right? Because yeah, like, so it would really be about 3 babysitters on Halloween having dreams. And I'm not saying that's not cool and that's not something worth exploring. I'm just saying that you have to structurally, we'd have to think about this and how that would work, right? And same if you plop Michael in Friday the 13th. Well, who is he, right? Why is he there? Was it his mother that was killed? Michael in Friday the 13th and Jason in Halloween, I think works a little easier. Freddy, because of the world for which he kills in, which is the dream world, is a layer that you also have to bring over to a film that you put him in, to another film that you put him in. You have to bring the dream world with him. You can't just pick him and plop him unless you're taking the dream world out of the character and making him just a regular serial killer like Freddy. But then that kind of takes Freddy out of that takes the whole makeup of the character out too. So, yeah, it's kind of fun. It's interesting. It's interesting indeed. Sebastian says, Freddy would say, Laurie missed your wake-up call to Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah. In a dream or something like that. That might be interesting. Might be interesting for sure. Evil Monsterism says, hey, Dave, I love Halloween as much as you do, but I've always wondered why the cold, thoughtless, emotionless killer Myers feels a need to hide his face with a mask. I don't think he necessarily again, there's no evidence to suggest that he, that he's hiding his face. And again, realistically, why did they put a mask on him? Because that's how it was written. And you know what I mean? But in that world, if we want to play that game, I don't get the sense that he's hiding his face. I get the sense that he's just And again, the original Myers in the original Halloween is not, I don't believe, is making these conscious, calculated decisions. A lot of these things are very instinctual. Now, I'm not saying that he doesn't know what a bathroom is, or he doesn't know what his foot or hand are. I'm not saying that, but it's very predatory, like a cat, right? You know, it's not personal. It's instinctual. He's making a lot of he's making decisions based on instincts and now what that evil is that's driving him, that is forcing him to commit these acts, I don't know. But I don't think he's making complex decisions. You know, like he's rationalizing, he's thinking about, he's compartmentalizing his thoughts, he's intellectualizing. I don't think that at all. So when he picked up the mask at the hardware store, he probably broke in there to get a knife and rope or whatever, right? Tools. I don't think he necessarily broke in there to also get a Halloween mask. I think maybe that mask was just there. And he, after stealing the knife, which makes sense, or knives, which makes sense, the rope, which makes sense, you know, tools he might need to do his bidding, to kill. He maybe on his way out, the mask was just there, and this evil, it's instinctual. He just picks it up. That's it, right? You know what I mean? Because it's blank, it's pale. He's relating to it on some sort of subconscious primal level that he's not even consciously aware of. He's relating to it on a primal subconscious level that he's not even consciously aware of. It's instinctual, right? He didn't pick up the other mask that was over here, or the kooky little, fun mask. No, it called to him, and he doesn't even know why. He just takes it, you know what I mean? And he puts it on. It's very much like that kind of thing. Very much like that kind of thing. All right, folks, listen, that's going to do it for me here on this Sunday afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. Again, I had some time. So I thought, why not jump on and tackle this question? I know this topic today, some of you are probably rolling your eyes thinking, oh my God, Dave's desert. I just thought it would be a fun topic to discuss. And as you can see, there's actually some meat on the bone here, right? There's actually some meat on the bone. There's actually kind of an interesting topic to talk about. How would it change things? Would it change things? I think it's kind of fun. But anyways, folks, my name's Dave McRae. Thank you to all the Super Chat questions that came in today, of course, the non-Super Chat questions as well, and to my great moderators, Frank Riker, Tab the Short, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, and Cody Snyder. Thank you for doing what you guys do. I really appreciate it. If you want to follow me on social media, you can. There are my links right there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. And comment below and let me know your thoughts on the main topic on today's show. And all the things I had to say here today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And start the discussion down there and get the ball rolling. That's going to do it for me. I will see you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. All right, folks. Have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great rest of your Sunday. I will talk to you soon. Cheers.